there?
Yes, I can do it. Oh, there you go.
Oh, it was the sidewalk labor request for 44th Street. My vote was a no vote on that. I'm just gonna double check. I think that was the only one. I'm sorry, I had a note, I was still reading everything. Let's see if I can save it. Yes, that was the only thing. I voted no on that, but I had voted while Jim, while you were already speaking, so you wouldn't hurt me.
Okay. So the motion is,
To accept the minutes with the one correction of recording my vote as a no vote on the 44th Street project from last time.
second?
That was item number 10.
What's that?
Just to help you guys, it's item number 10.
Second? Do we have a second? Yes? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The minutes are approved. Now we've got the bills. And Catherine, this was your item. I think you referred to bills generally.
Yes. I have these all in order. I apologize. Oh, here we go. Oh, now I found the minutes of the meeting. That's nice. Well, I guess, do you want, I mean, I have some questions and a couple of points of concern, but I suppose that needs to come after there's a motion. Given my points of concern, I don't want to be the one in the motion to approve the bills.
I'll make a motion to approve the bills for December 11, 2020, the Visa bills and the utility bills.
Second.
And moved and seconded.
So, the concern, one of the concerns I had, kind of stems with somehow how I got confused on the item, approved for the other department. But, I noticed that scattered throughout, there was a lot of, money being spent with our fire department. Again, not that it's a bad thing, but I wanted to make sure I was understanding, you know, because with this being only our second full meeting on these kinds of issues, it just seemed like a lot of money. I was noticing on page 1 that there's $286 there. There is another expenditure for, it says fire truck, $24,653. We had another piece later on that was 2 items listed as fire truck. What's that?
Sorry, I was just trying to get some answers for you.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to wait?
No, go.
Oh, okay. 2 items on page 8 that total $9,640 for, I don't know if it's fire truck 825 and fire truck 821, if it's actually the number of the fire truck or if that's another indication there. And then on the same page, fire truck is listed at $4,743.70. And then on the next set of documents, fire, I'm assuming it is a fire hose, but it just says Fire Hose Direct is the supplier and it supplies $102.20. So I just had a concern as to, it's just, maybe just clarification. It just seemed like a lot and it wasn't really clear what it was for, and I didn't see that there was any prior like vote or discussion, so I don't know.
I mean, Mr. Chair, I don't know if you have if you want the chief to address it, that's up to you. Each one. Right, that's what I was asking. We just
You want the chief to address your concerns?
Yeah, I was,
Okay.
Right, we purchased 2 new trucks
okay.
this year, so I'm assuming some of this equipment is preparing for the new trucks, but I'll let the chief address the specifics.
Awesome, thank you.
tool for each one of the new engines that we're getting on the road. And that went through the board, the services committee and the board. A lot of this, the pricing that you're looking at is loose equipment for these trucks, as in hoses, nozzles, right on down my fittings. I mentioned hose, but we're pretty much coming to the end of what we're doing here. So, but a lot of those items pertaining to the two fire trucks, I think even on there, there's a couple that are identical. And those are from Scott Signs for the detailing and the lettering on the trucks. So,
It really costs $4,500 to get the detailing?
you know how big those trucks are?
Well, I'm just, this is my first go around on that, so that was,
Yeah, it's,
okay.
once we get them outfitted and they're on the road, then at one of the board meetings, I'll take them down here so you can get an idea of what you're looking at there.
And I apologize, I thought I had a note in here, is there not another expenditure in here that is, no, I guess, so are all of those items, because that totals just shy of $40,000, is that all based on those two fire trucks, then, just different pieces?
That's loose equipment for those two trucks.
Okay, it was already voted on, so that's all that, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Is there, Dan, I'm assuming that you would be the best one to answer, on page 1, Cottonwood 8 is really all it says, there's $5,000.
Cottonwood intersection, I'm assuming that's the retainage that we held back to make sure that project was completed. We held back money. Yeah, so the final things were done.
Okay. I guess, I don't know if this is something that is just a one-time project, but, well, Centron Data Services, there's a lot of different things, it looks like they're billing for us, for our billing.
Yes, they do our billing for us, so we pay them for postage and mailing of all our billing.
Okay, so then I assume any other like items that are listed throughout, scattered throughout here is just like, if postage is listed, it's just other postage that has nothing to do with billing.
Right.
All billing goes, that's part of, included in that package.
So the tax bills went out December 1, so then we get a bigger lump sum. Plus we used it for water billing as well.
It helps you with peace of mind. Michael and I spent today probably a little over 2 hours going through the invoices, going through everything in the
Going through
exception.
these.
Yes. And we signed the checks.
So you're more on than I am, is what you're saying to me?
Pretty much.
So I guess I do have, as far as the $11,000, almost $12,000 on the cross-connection program, is that something that was already voted on?
Yes, the board voted on that multiple years. It's a state requirement.
Okay, but, yes, I did have, I guess a question on page 7, just shy of 9,000 on various digital subscriptions, is that just?
That's library.
Library, yeah.
Okay. And I think that was,
Are we done with bills on the library?
For construction, you mean?
Well, I see $5,000 for the sign up front again, I'm curious what that's all about.
Well, we held off on doing the signs on our building. We kind of wanted to see how people were coming through and coming, in the facility. Then, of course, we had COVID, so it made it really slow to order the signs. But yes, that's for the directional signs you see and the signs labeling the buildings, like above the doors. And then you'll see in the parking lot kind of pointing which way for people to go.
I just have one last question. So there are a couple items that just talked about team building lunches. It looks like it was like just shy of 1,500 total or 1,300 total or something like that. Is that just, who is it for?
That's our Christmas party.
I'm sorry,
That's our annual Christmas party.
for the township? Okay,
Yeah, for all staff.
staff of the township, okay. Those are all my questions, so there's still a motion.
Okay, is the board ready to vote? All right, all in favor, say aye. Item 18, Fire Department Lucas device request. Is there a motion to approve this quote?
I'll make the motion to approve the quote to purchase 3 Lucas devices as recommended by services.
Second that.
Okay, moved and seconded.
I would hope you could do it after you guys are the ones that voted on it, right?
Board discussion?
These devices are very cool. Essentially, they're machines that do CPR compressions, and likely more effective than human compressions because they kind of suction cup to the victim's chest. So it's not just pulling down, but it's also pulling back up, which can cause some inhale. I'm good so far, right? Okay, he'll correct me if I'm wrong. But these serve some good purposes. One of them is that if the machine is doing CPR compressions, you're saving on manpower. Another one is that if they have to use one of the tarps with handles that you would use to move someone up a flight of stairs, out of a basement to the ambulance, something like that, these devices could continue to function during that transport, which isn't true of actual human CPR because you would need that firm surface behind them. The fire chief did, and one of the other fire officers did a demonstration of the loaner one that they have been using for the last few months. And so this motion is to approve 3 of them so that there can be one housed at each of the fire stations, which increases response time. We had some conversations about if you just put one at one fire station and then ask for that one to be brought to the different cardiac emergencies, but it seemed like just the size of the township and the quickness that you would want these devices to respond to a cardiac emergency necessitated the purchase of 3 and not just 1.
Thank you for that summary, Becky. Any other comments from the board on the motion that's before you?
Yeah, how many medical calls do you guys go on? I mean, does the fire, I understand the fire department, but I also understand we have E-units, we have an ambulance, and, I'm just wondering, do you do a lot of calls?
We do, this year is up more than usual.
Is it?
Right now, I looked at our numbers today, and this is everything. Right now, we're at 710 calls.
Okay.
Other years, if we got 500, 550, that was a good year. But this year, obviously, with the COVID medical emergencies going on, our calls are more than what they ever have been. Now, to say on our E-unit program, for those that don't know, those units in the sheriff's office are ALS units, and that's advanced life support. They are the initial response on any medical or personal injury accident in Georgetown. At the time they are tied up on what I call police work or on another medical, which has been the case quite a few times this year, they automatically knock out fire.
Okay.
So basically, we go on as a backup, but in a situation like this where this equipment request is, if an E-unit would get a call for a cardiac class 1, they automatically request fire. Why? Because it gives them extra hands on the scene. Between the E-units and the ambulance companies, they can do more of their medicine pushing, and our staff can rely more on the CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation. That's what these units will do.
Did I miss, did you say what the lifespan of these would be?
I don't think we ever got any kind of a lifespan on them, but I think to be 10, 15 years. I can call the salesman on it and see what he says, but that's just my thoughts on it.
And I realize this is not the same motion, but I found my note where I was thinking I had another note. It was in relation to all the expenditures that were already approved, but that were just shy of 40,000. My concern was, wow, in 1 month we'd be spending $82,000 just in the one department. Are these expenditures atypical because they just kind of all coalesced at the same time, but they're linked.
The truck, they're keeping the truck 15 years front line and then another 15 years back line. So yes, it's a big year for the fire department this year with 2 new trucks.
And basically, like Dan said, there's 2 new engines that we're gonna put on the road. Earlier this year, we put a new, smaller rescue vehicle on the road. So really, we did 3 trucks this year. So that's why the increase in the funding, basically to retrofit all 3 trucks, because the current trucks that are in front line right now are going to backup. So we had to buy all new equipment for these trucks.
Okay, so the fact that this is all coming out in like one period of time is an anomaly for
Next year, you won't have that.
maybe next month. I mean, I'm new to the board, so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a lot of money.
Like I said, we should be about coming to the end as far as purchases go.
Okay, that makes me a lot more comfortable to know that, thank you.
And we had budgeted for the purchase of the fire trucks. When we made our budget, we knew that that was coming this fiscal year. So it was something that we budgeted for, and we knew that not only would we have to buy the engines, but we would have to outfit them.
Okay, is the board ready to vote? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, it's passed.
Just a
That was,
point of order before we move into the second comment. I realize I don't want to have it neglected. The one point that happened this time where I was answering too late and we were already into the next item, I just want to make sure, I'm not sure the appropriate way to handle this, but if it could just be reflected, so maybe just to tell you, Rod, I'm not sure.
perhaps after the meeting, tell Rod you want to verify.
Well, I want it on the record, so I don't want it after the meeting. It was, the vote that I made on item number 11, the alarm system contract was the one that I voted no on, that I think that ended up being summarized as a unanimous vote. So I just wanted to correct that since I was not heard.
Number 11, correct?
Yes.
Okay, item 18A, this was Michael's item, a goal-setting session.
I would make a motion that we set a tentative goal-setting meeting in January.
Choose a month and
In January.
direct them to check with our schedules. Yeah. All right, there's been a motion made to schedule a goal-setting session for January. Is there a second?
For the purpose of discussion, I'll second. I would have a question afterwards.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Board discussion?
Let's start, I would just say basically what we've done every year as a board is in the fall, usually it's November, we set a goal-setting meeting where everybody kind of puts together a list of what their goal is, and then we as a board sit and say, okay, we've got X amount of money, or here's what we want to accomplish, whether it be walkability, park improvements. We all kind of start brainstorming on what direction the board wants to take moving forward in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Usually it's typically just 1 year out, just kind of although typically, I think maybe the first year in 2016 we did a 4-year, just kind of what we're going to do. But that way, we're kind of moving in unison. We all get a rough idea of where we're headed. So that way, it's, when stuff comes up, it's not like, oh, what is this for? It's just kind of willy-nilly. It doesn't have anything to do with it. Then later you find out, it's like, why? Overall, if this is what we're trying to accomplish, this had nothing to do with it. Didn't help us get to that goal, just spent money. So that's what I would say. And I think one of the concerns was there's some new board members. Are they ready for goal setting yet? Is it too new to kind of see what the dynamics are, or what each committee or board or commission does to put that out? But I would say a goal setting, just kind of general, not real specifics, but just kind of brainstorming almost, a brainstorming session. Just deciding, is it parks? Is it walkability? Is it more sidewalks? Is it an increase in roads? What do we do as a board moving forward? Just general, big picture idea stuff.
I guess my thought, well, initially I was going to say, if we're looking at doing January would be a good time to do it, then in June. You know, at the last meeting, we were thinking that, at least some board members were thinking that there might not be enough agenda items to concern ourselves with for a whole meeting. Perhaps that goal setting meeting could essentially fill that one of those slots. But as you begin to talk though, I'm wondering if maybe it is too soon, if we're looking for an overall bigger picture, especially if we're going to be relooking at the whole master plan for the community. Not that that's the exact same thing, but if in general you have some of the same concepts about what features are important, perhaps it would be better to try to wait a little bit and fill out some of those things. So,
To your first point, I think based on experience thus far, 2 or 3 items can fill a meeting, so I think we'll be able to fill 2 meetings a month. I think this would be better held at an evening, probably, that we've done in the past, like on maybe a Monday late afternoon, it could be a 5 to 9. I think there ought to be a limitation on it in terms of the amount of time, but yes, I think generally speaking, those have been productive. We haven't had one for a while. I think at the outset of the new board, that's probably a good idea, Michael, and I'm with Katherine that it wouldn't necessarily have to be January. Maybe you look at it in the January, February range and see what works. Gary?
Yeah, I like to get my feet a little bit wet on a couple of the committees I'm on, January, it just seems a little early for me. I've only been to 1 meeting at each committee I'm sitting on, so I wanted to know what goals I have coming on there just yet. I'm not sure I have a good feel for that. That's just my opinion, but.
For what it's worth, I know all of us kind of duck in and out with different things, and I know Dan and Rod, we like to have you a part of those things, and so there's a number of schedules that have to come together. Perhaps if we were to say within this first, I don't want to keep bumping, but first quarter of this new year,
Yeah.
that they would throw out several possible dates and kind of check with our calendars and see.
I like that.
And I'm not married to January, it's just,
Yeah.
I was throwing it out there for a starting point, just because I think, and the reason I brought it up is when we've typically done it, and I'll say 2016, I came to the table with 12 items that I don't think any of them included spending, they were all saving.
Okay.
But that's just my style. When I just saw a number of things coming up here on the agenda, I'm like, oh, these are great things, but what are we doing moving as, what is our goal? Is this helping towards that goal? We don't know what the goal is, so it's like, I think the sooner the better, but we don't want to rush it.
Okay.
It would be
Motion,
productive.
a motion to amend Michael's motion to schedule a goal-setting session of the board sometime within the first quarter of 2020.
it looked like Dan had something to offer perhaps on scheduling.
Well, initially, my thoughts were, we were gonna try to introduce each department to, at a meeting similar to today, but then like fire are planning on doing one in January to let the fire department present their items, and then have library present and have water and sewer at each one. And then my thought was the goal setting session, but that's might push it much later than you're thinking, is even into April, but that's what we were thinking. We can do whatever you want. If you want to have it in February, that's fine.
I'm quite all right with that suggestion, Dan.
I don't know whatever you want to do, but that's thinking that we'd have these different departments come for you each meeting to kind of give you ideas of how we're interpreting things, how we're doing things, and then you can tell us if you want to change those things.
You don't have a second on your amendment, do you?
No, and I withdrew my motion.
I would move to amend the motion then to, as long as we're able to not have, another polar vortex and we're whatever, but if we can continue at a reasonable pace for all the departments, that we do a goal setting session like right after that's done.
Early spring,
Like a Q2, something like that.
Like
early spring,
Like April,
Quarter.
April.
second quarter.
So I'm not sure exactly how to word it, but
I will support that.
Moved and supported. All in favor of revising Michael's original motion then to push that date out, perhaps to the end of our training sessions, if you will, that maybe around April, May? Say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so that was to amend the original motion. Do we have to now amend? I guess we need to vote now on the motion as amended. The motion as amended, do you now approve of this goal-setting session as a board in April or May, as to be determined according to schedule? Yes?
Yeah.
That's the motion before you. fine,
is
all right,
the
that's
agenda
fine.
that we move forward. as
That's fine.
such.
18B, packets, that's all I've written down, packets, I'm looking Catherine's way.
Yes, I would, make a motion that we have, 7 to 14 days, notice of meetings. We already know when the meetings are, but that not just the agenda, but the packets would be given to us at least 7 days in advance, not just for us, but for committees. Part of that came out of I'm gonna make a motion. That it be the agendas and whatever attachments necessary for that agenda would be at least 7 days given to us, and I don't see why it wouldn't also be given to the public via the website, at least 7 days prior to whatever meeting that was that it pertained to.
Okay, there's a motion,
Supported.
moved and supported.
My,
Can I ask for some, like, could we get like an exception for like bills, like for the vendors?
Can the finance presentation be next then? Because, I don't mean that in jest. What my concern is, I don't remember the total number of pages. I want to say it was over, I had assistance printing, it was over 100 pages of this packet, and to have 3 days to be able to go through that. I don't necessarily want to have, a 12-hour meeting when we're here, but when it's 3 days notice to see these things, I'm doing the best I can, so, and then likewise, our last one was 93 pages, and then there was something about, Manette was saying, and that, like, for ZBA and Planning Commission, essentially, I think what you clarified is it's not legally required, but it's like the thing to do, that instead of a board member asking those, going to a site and asking questions of a property owner, that it's best to go through her or somebody here. So if you're going to have to increase that communication that way in terms of length of time, then there just needs to be.
I meant for an exception for like paying the invoices for the vendors.
Well, I understand that, but I don't know necessarily enough about, I understand paying bills in a very timely fashion.
That's what I was trying to get to.
I'm very particular about paying all my bills. I also would be concerned about some of the expenditures are quite large, and although nobody else might have shared any of the concerns that I had,
Most of the others contact us if they have a question on invoice when they see them. They give us an email and say, hey, can you tell me what this is?
3 days, I did my best.
Saying
This
that's
is
what
a part-time job.
Several of them ask me questions continuously, so it's okay. I'm just, so.
That's what I'm saying, if I had enough notice, if there were, say, 7 days, I mean, quite frankly, I'd like to have at least 2 weeks, because that's what I've always had on boards, but if I had a 7-day notice.
Okay, I just asked for the exception, because the vendors are the ones who are gonna complain, so.
Well, I guess for me, what I'm essentially asking for is, unless I'm counting wrong, they would have to wait an additional 4 days at the worst. So I don't see how that would be a problem. So I'm asking to receive the packets 7 days out instead of 3 days out.
Right.
something that was a holdup previously is that services always met Thursday evening. And so then the agenda couldn't come out until Friday morning because we had to have services to send items to the agenda. And we decided at our services committee meeting to push that back to Tuesday. So then agendas can come out, that's right?
Yeah, and
Tuesday,
it's the third Tuesday, so it'd be before the final meeting of the month.
before the final meeting of the month because other committees were being before the second meeting of the month. So, I think that in services, we had a conversation moving in the direction that you're wanting to go. It wasn't a full 7 days, but we got an extra 2 by going from Thursday to Tuesday.
Once a month meeting?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a reason, is there a reason why you couldn't move it up a week so that there's, instead of having only 6 days or less, there would be 13 days between?
Because as of right now,
It could be the Tuesday following a board meeting, so like.
Right, so like if you were to meet tomorrow, if you were to meet Tuesdays, could you meet tomorrow and then we have 13 days before the next one?
We can accommodate it. Others will be frustrated, but we can accommodate it.
I don't know that I can do a 7 to 10 meeting Monday night and then come back Tuesday from 4 to 6. I just, because that's 2 days back to back for me, and I work 8 to 4:30. And so I don't know that I can do 8 to 4:30 at school, 7 to midnight on Monday night, and then 8 to 4:30 at school, and then 4 to 6 in services the next day.
I can't do it on 6 days. Anything less than 7, I can't, because we're here for this long, because I have not had a reasonable opportunity to, and I'm sorry, I'm getting upset, I'm not upset with you, so please.
No, I'm trying to empathize, but also advocate for the needs of my family. I can't do services.
I can't do these meetings for this long either at a time. So I have the exact same concern you do. I'm just trying to figure out how we can both get to a resolution, because I have 4 kids, I work full-time, I homeschool, I mean, I get it,
We're
so.
all in it.
Could we try 5 days, Catherine, just go to?
I need more time than that, Gary. This is not a full-time job. I do not get paid enough to do this, that much time consuming that many, I just can't devote that much time to that in that short amount of time.
Actually, I think we could, we just skip it, just say, so it's gonna happen that, what is it now, Tuesday, the 3rd Tuesday of the month?
Yeah, it's the 3rd Tuesday.
Tuesday of the month.
So yeah, I
So
mean,
we'll not go on the next board meeting, it goes on to the next one, so now we just charge it from 2 days to 3 weeks.
that's what I was just gonna bring up, as
Because
far as like,
the whole thing
you just
is-
delay, so we do it on that Tuesday, instead of it being on that following Monday, it just flips to that, the first one. I mean, it takes a little bit more time.
It isn't quite that simple.
Okay.
It will work eventually. You're gonna have all applications, all our deadlines, we'll have to revisit them all. And it's not that we can't do it, but right now, everything's based on the schedule. The planning commission meets these 2 days a month. So then we tell them, we send them, it's gonna be approved. We tell them it's gonna be approved on this day. So, but it goes to the planning commission on that Wednesday, then we get it to the agenda on the board meeting that following Monday. So all those dates are there. Those will all change. So applications that are expecting a certain approval date will end up waiting 3 weeks. So it's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just so you're prepared that it won't be just something else. I mean, certainly us buying something, that's fine.
That's fine. It impacts finance as well, right?
Well, it'll impact all the meetings, yeah. So essentially what they're saying is you can have your finance on that Wednesday and then wait 2 full weeks before it goes to the board. We can have the agenda out 2 weeks early at that point, but.
I mean, in all fairness, I brought this up at the last meeting, but I was told to essentially wait, or, I don't know, see how I brought it up, so everybody was fully aware of this. This is something I was.
Well, which is partly why I asked the services to switch their days, so we could at least pick up a day. I didn't realize you were looking for a week at that point. I was trying to get it to a day quicker, which was what we accomplished at that point, but.
I think too often we have matters come before us, at least I can speak to finance committee, where I shouldn't say often enough, that we don't have the luxury of delay. That does happen. Hopefully we can minimize those times, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion then that this vote's going to turn one way or another. I understand people's points of view, and I think we need to call a vote. So,
If we need to ever call a special meeting for something that's urgent, we can do that, but, I mean, we're looking on average of 100-page packets. We cannot do that in less than a week's time. It's just not reasonable. It's also not going to be reasonable for the person, the average person in the community, to be able to go through all that and ask their questions and not be appropriate either, so.
I agree.
all right. So why don't we roll call vote this one, please, Ryan?
So what is the actual, I just wanna make sure we.
I made the motion to get the meeting agendas with whatever attachments are, the packet essentially, at least 7 days prior to the meeting for which that packet is prepared.
Michael,
That's
is that
all
seconded?
meetings, right?
All
I will
meetings,
second that.
for all meetings,
Catherine,
yes.
Maggie,
No.
Gary,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Jim,
No.
I'm a yes.
All right, that was item 18B. Item 19, second public comment period for the 2 of you who hung in there. Back there are 3 of you. Does anyone wish to address the board at this time on any subject? Okay, thank you. All right, we'll close the second public comment period. Item 20, discussion and general information among the board. Anyone wish to raise anything?
I do, last meeting I raised the concern about our kind of a twofold situation that when you go online, and Annette was discussing tonight, how she has essentially the paper copies of the ordinances that we voted on, but then there's also a version online. When you go online, the top part that references the charter, prior to that, it seems to go right on into our ordinances, which is something different. Essentially, a charter is akin to your bylaws of your organization or something of that nature, your constitution for a state, that kind of thing. So I did notice that there was an update made to that, and I appreciate that. I would ask that maybe we can improve that just to clarify for people if they're wondering what framework we have to go with, because we don't have a stated constitution or bylaws, that the charter essentially is chapter 42 of our Michigan Codified Laws, and where chapter 42 is silent, chapter 41 serves in that capacity, just so that it gives people direction if they're looking for what rules are we bound by or what procedures are we bound by. So I didn't think it was necessarily worth making a motion, but I wanted to throw that out there. And on the same token, the note that we have at the bottom of the preface there references the fact that, hey, these are all of our codes, these are zoning ordinances, you're bound by this, but hey, by the way, if the paper version that has been voted on, it all contradicts with what's online. The paper version is what typically controls. Number one, it doesn't have a finite answer there, so how does a person know which one would control for sure? But number two, what kind of notice are we giving people the rules that they're supposed to be governed by if they can't go online and see them with all the rest of them? So I would think that we would need to, I don't know if it has to do with a specific action item needed on our part, if it's an action item that needs to be happening on the side of the people that do the website, or what might be needed there, but maybe it's to say something that ordinances would actually become effective upon 72 hours after the vote, so that gives the company enough time to put it online, and so everybody can see it once it's official. I don't know what would be the correct mechanism, but it just seems really wrong that we can have rules that we're all supposed to be governed by that aren't even available with the rest of the set of rules for people to be able to look up and know, oh, okay, if I want to put a fence, oh, I gotta do this. Oh, wait, that might not be the current one. How do I know? So, just as an example, but.
Okay, any other discussion among the board?
My only question was, Katherine, when Jim changed his style for doing voice votes at the same time, did that work better for you?
Generally speaking, I was able to sit around Ryan for that, and I noticed you did, Jim, I noticed you did a good job about trying to play that game with me so that we could see each other. As long as we do that, just human nature, it might be something where if Jim got more comfortable with, just the process and then wasn't necessarily being that as deliberate, I can see how it might not work, but so far it did, so I appreciate that you asked to follow up on that.
I just wanted to make sure that we were in a good place. Jim, do you feel like that's comfortable and sustainable?
Sure.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Support.
Move to support, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, meeting's adjourned, thank you.